Hi, good night. Welcome to Conversation with Rickford Burke. It's 9:11 p.m. In New York. Sorry for the late start. It's about 10:11 p.m. in Guyana, but 2 a.m. 2:11 a.m. in Europe. Wherever you're watching from, I hope you're having a good time. Share the link. You know the drill. Share the link. Get into all your Guyanese groups, social media groups. Share this link on all your platforms. Wow, you guys are sharing the link. Welcome to Conversation with Rickford Burke, rather. We have a very interesting panel this evening. Still waiting on two of our panelists. I understand that there's blackout in Berbice, so we might have a difficulty getting Member of Parliament Natasha Singh Lewis. But hopefully GPL is kind to Region 6 by the end of the program, and we can benefit from her insight. Share the link, get into all your Guyanese groups, call up all your relatives and friends. You know, I'm from Bartica. I'd like to see my Bartica people in the house. If you're from Bartica, call all of Bartica. Let them know Conversation with Rickford Burke is on. Listen, I have a friend from the U.S. Army in Germany, stationed in Germany, and he's always the first person to log on. Good night, Germany. Good night. I'm seeing people from Barbados. Let me see. Text me, let me know where you're watching from. Somebody said watching from Linden. Watching from Los Angeles. The time there is 6:12 p.m. Good night, Los Angeles. Barbados in the house. Jamaica. Wow, it's 9 o'clock in 9:13 as well in Jamaica. Jamaica has the same time like the United States currently. Text me, let me see where you're watching from. Again, Barbados, Canada, St. Martin. Everybody, share the link and text me, let me know where you're watching from. Brooklyn in the house. Boogie Down Bronx, Connecticut. Kelville, thank you. Trinidad. Canada again. Good night, Mr. Seymour. Sorry, Miss Seymour, good night. Good night. Miss Porter, Samantha Porter, good night. Deborah, cousin Deborah, Brooklyn in the house. Share the link, share the link, share the link, everybody. Share this link. I hope you guys have had a wonderful time. Wow. You guys are sharing the link. And you know, while we do this, By the end of the show, I would like everybody to go to my Facebook blog. That's the page with me standing with my hands clasped with a blue suit with sunglasses, and like that page. That's my Facebook blog, and like that page. Go to my YouTube page and subscribe. Also, we're doing a poll. CGID is doing a poll. Guyana government officials have been complaining that we're talking about racism that doesn't exist. They say Black people in Guyana love the PPP. Afro-Guyanese love the PPP. They voted for the PPP in thousands, and there's no racial discrimination. So we decided to do that poll. So check on my page, check on CGID page, check on all the other pages in the Guyanese groups. You'll see that poll. Please participate in this poll. Everybody watching tonight, please participate. Well, 3,000 people. Please participate in the poll. Linden in the house, good night. Nashville, Tennessee, good night. Where is this? Curacao, good night. Okay, share the link. We'll be back in about 60 seconds and we'll start the conversation. Share the link. All right, keep sharing the link, keep sharing the link. Again, I want to remind you of the poll. We are conducting, CGID is conducting a poll. The poll is whether there's racism in Guyana, whether or not African Guyanese feel that they're treated fairly by the PPP, whether the PPP has been discriminating against the Afro-Guyanese population, and whether the PPP has been transferring state resources and funds directly to its ethnic base. There's good reason for this poll. Like I said, the PP has been complaining to all and sundry that Rickford Burke and David Hines and the APNU and Aubrey Norton have been complaining about racism in Guyana. We have been making it up. So we wanted to do a poll, an unscientific poll, but at least everybody in Guyana, whether you're PPP, WPA, PNC, AFC, APNU, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Rastafarian, everybody has an opportunity to go to Facebook and take this poll. Also, go to YouTube and subscribe to my page. Go to my blog, Rickford Burke. That's the page with me standing with my hands clasped, with glasses on. And like that page, we have to start getting the message out. We don't have the resources that the PPP government has. And they have been monopolizing the media, so we have to use this opportunity and this platform, this our various social media platforms to get our message out. So tonight, I wanted to talk about the attitude of the government. Every time the PPP is in government, they starve the regions they did not win for funds. They starve Georgetown for funds. They starve funds. They starve local NDCs for funds. And then they deny it. And then they start to undermine these institutions and claim that they're incompetent. And then you see they'll bring the strategy of dissolving the council, using the powers of the local government minister to dissolve the council and appoint interim management committees. I mean, they're so audacious. Like, they would then take their people and put them to manage Georgetown through these interim management committees. We don't think they're going to try that this time because they're going to be an outcry and outpouring of outrage in the country. But that's what I see them doing. And just last weekend, the so-called installed president conducted a cleanup exercise of Georgetown. Did not consult the city council about, even if they wanted to have this initiative, you would think that they would coordinate with the city council, which manages Georgetown. They will know where to dump the garbage or the waste or whatever they collect. What portions of Georgetown are a priority. Whatever. At least you think they will coordinate with the mayor and city council. They did not do that. In addition to that, they were joined by diplomats and members of the private sector. On top of that, they then attacked the mayor and said he's incompetent. Remember, the mayor and city council. Remember, I just told you, they're not giving the city funds. They're starving the city for funds. In addition, they are not paying the taxes for government property in the city. So the city is starved for funds. But he's going to call the mayor incompetent. We're going to have the mayor tonight. Hopefully, he doesn't have blackout. But joining us shortly will be, we anticipate the mayor of Georgetown, Mr. Ubraj Narayan, Pandit Ubraj Narayan, the regional chairman of Region 4, Georgetown is in Region 4, Daniel Siram, Mr. Daniel Siram, Member of Parliament for AP and UAFC and Shadow Local Government Minister, Mr. Ganesh Mahipal, and also Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs, Member of Parliament for AP and UAFC, Ms. Amanza Walton Desir, who is also an attorney at law. So, without any hesitation, let me bring in, we're still waiting on the mayor, let me bring Mr. Daniel Siram, the regional chairman of Region 4. Honorable Mr. Siram. Good night, sir.
Pleasant good evening to you, Rickford, and pleasant good evening to your viewers and listeners. I must say that this is my first time on the show for the year. Thank you for having me. I'd like to first start out by wishing everyone a happy and prosperous 2022. I think that we started this year, nevertheless, we put aside politics, and so we started it on a good note because we're still here. We're surviving the pandemic, and we're surviving all of these atrocities that have been brought forth to us. It's always a pleasure being on the show, and I hope that we can have a fruitful discourse this evening to educate our comrades, our supporters, and by large, by extension, all citizens and the international community on what is happening and transpiring here in beautiful Guyana.
Thank you. That's our objective, to create awareness. And now for Mr. Daniel Siram, the Shadow Minister of Local Government, Member of Parliament for AP and UAFC. Mr. Mahipal, Ganesh Mahipal, MP. Good night. Welcome to the program.
Good night. Good night, Rickford. Good night, Daniel. I believe this is the first time for me on your program ever.
It is.
So let me thank you first of all for the invitation and say a special good night to your viewers. Daniel, I would like to join and wish every one of you a productive and prosperous 2022. And I want to take the opportunity also to extend condolences to the family and friends of one of our business giants who passed away in the name of Dr. Yesu Prasad. It was indeed a great loss for our country, knowing that he has this skill which his shoes will be difficult to fill. So on that basis, I want to extend condolences to his family and friends, and let's have a fruitful discourse.
Thank you, and I want to join you in extending condolences to the relatives and friends of Dr. Yesu Prasad, who, as you know, has been a businessman par excellence in Guyana. His business initiatives, I think, also include Sapil. Well, I don't know if Sapil still exists, but he did. Well, it's part of his legacy, small business, Institute of Small Business Development, etc. So indeed, we express condolences to him and his family and the nation at large. I think he also received the CACI, CCH, CACI Crown of Honor.
Yes.
Yes.
Miss Walton Desir, good night. Welcome to the show.
Good night, Rickford. Good night, Danny and Ganesh. And
Good
good
idea.
night to your listeners and viewers. I echo the sentiments expressed, and I'm looking forward to a very interesting discussion. It's always very interesting with you gentlemen, so I know that tonight will be no different.
Thank you very much. And thanks for
Rickford,
accepting the invitation.
Rickford, if I may just interrupt a bit, while we're on the matter of obituaries, I think that it is fitting also for us to extend condolences also that we have two giants within the PNCR who would have passed. Ganesh, you can help me here. None other than Miss Comrade Kathleen Armstrong from Region 3, who was a tower of a woman in that region. And we had Comrade Gordon Calendar, aka Badhart, from
All
the
right.
hailing
Live
from
them.
the Linden community. It's a sad time for us, and condolences and sympathies to the family of those fallen comrades. And I think that at this point in time, it's overwhelming the amount of deaths we see generally, nationally and internationally lately. So, sincere condolences again to those families. And I hope that we didn't miss anyone this evening. But we're not here just to do obituaries, but these were huge pillars of the People's National Congress reform that we should pay our respects to.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you for
Absolutely.
bringing that. I also join in extending my sincere condolences to the friends and relatives of those two citizens that you mentioned. And also, I'm pretty sure that there are others that we have missed. For those of you going through a loss, we sympathize with you. We keep you in our prayers. I've been seeing so many announcements on social media about deaths of our fellow citizens, and we all sympathize with their relatives and their friends. Mayor Narayan, if you were listening, or if anyone could get in touch with him, let him know we're still waiting for him. We also expect Member of Parliament Natasha Singh Lewis. She is the Shadow Minister of Human Services, or Human Services and Social Security. She lives in Region 6, Berbice, East Berbice Quarantine, and she's experiencing blackout thanks to GPL. So as soon as she gets electricity, I'm sure she is going to join us. We got a message earlier from Mayor Ryan saying that he's having some internet problems. He's trying to sort it out. So when he joins us, we're going to patch him through to the program. Daniel, I want to start with you. Keep sharing the link, everybody. Everybody share the link. We have a couple of thousand people here. Let's increase the viewership so that our message could go wide, vast, and fast. So we could create awareness of what is happening in Guyana among Guyanese and persons in the diaspora and the international community. Pretty sure some of whom are tuned into this program. Daniel, I want to start with you. You're the regional chairman for Region 4. You have been complaining, and all of us have been reading your statements and seeing your interviews in the press about the government using the REO to shut you out of, shut the Regional Democratic Council, which is the constitutional body that is lawfully the governing authority of Region 4, the administration. And so the government appoints the regional executive officer, which is the clerk of the council. I have some experience there. I interned at the Ministry of Regional Development. So I worked along with the minister and some other folks there. So I have a pretty good understanding of the law and how the regions are supposed to function. The regional executive officer has been working with supposedly the Minister of Local Government with regard to the budget, not allowing the Regional Democratic Council, which is as I said, the body that is responsible for managing the region, to participate in that process. And the same thing is going on in Georgetown and the other regions, but we'll come back to Georgetown. I want to talk about your experience as a regional chairman, because Guyana is not governed by a one party or one party period. And the central government doesn't govern every aspect of the state. There's a local government system. And so there's shared responsibility between the parties based on who the people voted for. What has been your experience with regard to the budgetary matters since you've been regional chairman? And what is your legal advice with regard to how the REO has been shutting you and your councillors out from the budgetary process?
Thank you, Rickford. I'd like to begin by saying, many of us are having very much difficulties at this point in time. We started this year with the gift of darkness given by the government. And this seems to be going from month to month now. It really is ridiculous. If you don't believe me, just check Amanza's post. You can see exactly when blackout starts and how and the duration of it. It's quite irregular, and a lot of things have reverted to pre 2015 since the government has taken over, and it's quite different and quite annoying at some times, because um, we got comforted by a better way of life between 2015 to 2020, and now we see the return of a filthy city, along with poor management of the electricity in the entire country. Rickford, as you may know, my woes at the region as the region aren't anything new to anyone. I make it my duty to inform all of the citizens within Region 4, and by extension, all citizens of Guyana, as to the affairs and what occurs at the region. This is part of my governance of the region, in terms of being transparent and in terms of always consulting, having meaningful consultation with the citizens. As you may know, even to the 2021 budget, we would have had issues with, in which I made it till to the budget meeting, and I would have put a stop to it there, and then it came back to council for some amount of fixing there. No amount of fixing that we were totally satisfied with, but at least it came back then. For the proposed 2022 budget, all on sundry could have seen where I would have started to record exactly where these so-called professional officers were going wrong. Um, Rickford, the special thing about the council is that the council is a microcosm of the National Assembly. And there we have both representatives of the government of the region, the government of Region 4 is the APNUAFC, and the opposition, which is the PPP in Region 4. And when we bring matters like this, the councillors, I'd like to point out that some of the representation needed in the region, the PPP councillors are rather very quiet on some of these issues. And it speaks a lot to exactly the direction and the instructions that they're given when they come to the council level. This is not development, or this is not governance on their part for all of Guyana, but by instruction given predominantly by Freedom House. Here now, I would have written to the REO, written to the head of state, written to the minister, all on sundry you can think about. We would have written and expressed and exhausted the issue with regards to the proposed 2022 budget. Even at the 2022 budget meeting with the director of budget, I would have further state my case in terms of the consultation with the council. Could you believe that the budget of Region 4 was done in isolation without it even coming to the council, the duly elected council of Region 4? This budget went through all the way and now is being tabled to go into Parliament without even any of the assent or any nod from the region in terms of the elected official, the true representative of the people within the region. And it is something that we are still looking at from a legal perspective in terms of how we will deal with it. But I can assure all the citizens that we have recorded all of these issues there for all on sundry to see, including the international community and the governance style shared by the People's Progressive Party as the government of the day here. It is quite alarming, because many of the things that many of the persons would have been messaging me and contacting myself along with regional councillors over the past year, we would have been in the process of always recording them. And the council was not afforded any chance to have these projects inputted. And at a glance at the regional budget, you can find that only areas that are historically strongholds of the government are getting works being done in them, which is quite alarming, because this isn't governing the country or governing the region for just all people, or for this one Guyana that is claimed. It is one set of Guyana that is being governed here, not for all Guyanese. And I speak to this matter everywhere I go, and I try to educate the citizens and tell them what is going on. While your elected officials are carrying these battles in the councils and at the level of the National Assembly, and we are articulating it and having it ventilated quite well. I think that sometimes our citizens drop the ball to understand how truly they are affected. Your way of life as a Guyanese is affected by every tier of governance, whether it be at the central government level, whether it be at the regional government level, whether it be at the level of the local governance in the local authorities, such as the municipalities and your neighborhood democratic council. The, the crafters of our constitution so put these tiers of governance so that every single way right down to the grassroots could be accounted for in the process of allotting finances and allotting resources to areas. And that is why we have, or we're supposed to have, a bottom-up approach here. Now we find that the budgets, all of the budgets within the country, specifically speaking here to the regional budget, are directed by central government to their installed um, regional executive officers here. I have colleagues that have similar issues in Region 10 and in Region 7. And yet, no matter who we write to, no matter how the call is there, it's being turned on. And even to the professionals at the Ministry of Finance don't know what to do because their hands are tied, because many of them are looking for job security instead of doing what is right for the Guyanese people. We sit here, Rickford, at a time in which some of the questions that we as politicians could speak on and articulate, most Guyanese are afraid to even speak in their circles or to have their managers or their supervisor overhear them speaking on. Currently, as I sit here, I'm quite um, concerned about where we're heading here. I govern, and most of, well, all of my colleagues here this evening, the Honorable Amanza Walton this year and the Honorable Ganesh Maipal, all of us live in Region 4. And surely if you are here, Rickford, you have been living right here as well.
I think
And
I just lives in Region 3.
and within the 300, more or less 311,000 people that we have in Region 4, which accounts to the largest voting region, we are not being given all of the resources that we need. Currently, we have several things that are facing us as a people here in Guyana. We have the rise in cost in living. We have
Daniel,
the
before you get to that point you're making, I want to piggyback on a point you just made. So are you saying that all of the projects, after you would have evaluated your region and the council determined all of the development projects that are necessary, whether it's water supply, electricity, roads, whatever it is, for your residents in Region 4, whether they're PPP villages or PNC, AP and UFC support areas, you're saying that none of that was taken into consideration? The government is just sitting with the REO and determining where these projects will be, and most of those projects from Region 4 are in PPP areas.
Rickford, first of all, let me say this here. While governing this beautiful region of ours here, I don't look at a village as a PPP village or a PNC village. I
Right.
look at the villages within Region 4 as the citizens of Region 4, and I took an oath of office to ensure that any resource that I have and finances available to the region, right, is given to those areas that need assistance. Right? What I can tell you here sitting this evening is that nothing of the sort with regards to the proposed budget for 2022 regional budget, Demerara Mahaica Region 4, nothing of the sort came to the council. The REO has yet to present that proposed budget to the council. And this is quite alarming. And as much as I
And the
articulated,
budget is about to go to Parliament, and they have not brought it to the council today.
exactly, as much as I've articulated it, I've articulated the persons who are supposed to be of a certain acumen in terms of financial accountability and financial allotment when it comes to the budgetary allocations in the country. These persons still turn a blind eye to these issues because they're afraid. We live in a society where myself, Ganesh, and Amanza can speak, and this is truly the hardware I'm speaking here about, but we can speak from a level that we don't have fear of whatever they can say, because we actually care about the people of this country. We actually care that good governance always prevails. At this point in time here, we sit and we see all of the frolic that is going on. We see the nice parades and the charades that are going on within our beautiful Ghana, but this is not what is happening. It goes back to the theory of bread and circus, right? When Caesar couldn't handle Rome, he decided to hold games because the people would have revolted against him. So he fed them bread and he gave them circus. Right now, what we're having is Main Street light-ups, right? And 7% with hampers and also other payouts that my people can't get. So it's rather frustrating at the level of the citizen, right? You walk around, you see cost of living, you see rises in the COVID-19 numbers. We are just about 2 or 3% short yesterday of 100% rise in COVID number for region 4 between last Monday to this Monday. Quite alarming. It is said that the Omicron variant may be here, and we haven't detected it as yet to state that that is what here, but health officials are saying that the symptoms are similar. So now we have people that are getting sick and that need to go and buy the necessary nutrients and necessary medication. Where are they getting these monies? Where are they getting the additional finances to take care of themselves? If an average household is 4 persons and the cost of living has risen by X amount of percentage, and you're getting sick and you're not getting a raise in pay as you should have as a public servant, how do you find that additional monies to, one, feed your family, take care of your family, and ensure that they're sustained so much that they can fight off any infection or disease that comes around us? Why we run around the place and we worry about all of these things that we're seeing going on, just as the circus that we're living in, right? We don't understand the plight of the Guyanese people. And this year, I sit here this evening with somewhat of a heavy heart to tell you that the suffering that is going on here in Guyana, right, needs to stop immediately. While the government is only interested in pleasing a certain fraction, a decimal of this country, right, we have people that are truly suffering while they are only running to go into the natural resource fund to do that forced withdrawal to take all of the oil funds. We have people still here wondering, why is planting so much? Why is boro so much? Why are these things growing in Guyana? We have to pay so much exorbitant costs if the government is supposed to be stepping in within these sectors to subsidize them, to ensure that the average citizen has an idea or could take part in the comforts of this booming oil economy that we have here. Next month, we're going to have the oil conference coming here. And I hear everyone speaking and defending the local content that we have in this country, in which I'm an advocate for local content, and any patriot, true patriot of a country, would be an advocate for local content. But however, when you're advocating for local content, it's not just for your business to go, but you must cater for that trickle-down effect so that you can ease the cost of living directly, right? Not indirectly, but directly to the people who need it the most. We don't want a separation in what the Indians would call a caste here. We don't want that in Guyana. We need everybody to be on par enjoying the good life, right? When you look at the success stories of countries who would have gotten any gifts or any boons, as we say in Hinduism, you find that it took putting aside differences and coming together of all stakeholders with meaningful consultation, thorough discussions leading to informed decisions. Right now, we have a one-man show, a one-man band playing all the time, right? But I can say one-man bands get tired because they can't play past 2 hours, right? And soon the tune will stop, right? And
Daniel, you
then
said something.
come out.
I'll give you 30 seconds to clarify it. I just want to make sure I reiterate what you said. You said basically what we have developing based on the policies right now are basically 2 Guyanas, right? Or you're saying
Pardon, I
it's going
didn't
to
hear
lead
the
to
last
that if
one.
it's not. Go ahead.
The policies are what?
You spoke of, you said you don't want to have a society of 2 societies, basically. You want to have one Guyana. I'm saying, do you see the prospect of 2 societies emerging in Guyana?
It is not the prospect of 2 societies emerging in Guyana. It is 2 societies that are currently dwelling in Guyana here. I mean, look at the fanfare of the cleanup during last weekend. I was going in a military environment, and I know what is unification, working towards a common goal and ensuring that that common goal is successful. However, if you don't bring all stakeholders to a table, not informally, but to a table and speak to them and say, hey, this is something for national development, and we will iron out all of the other issues that the municipalities have. But this is a sign of good faith going forward that we can all work together. Now, wouldn't that have been a greater picture, right, than polarizing society there? Because I can tell you, as they were cleaning Georgetown, many of the areas that weren't cleaned or weren't afforded this fanfare and these photos, because it's horrors that happen in those areas, were still left unkept. Many of the difficult areas in which the main city council always preach about and always ask for assistance there are still unkept. So while I understand, and kudos to those who are out there on Saturday and Sunday trying to make a difference, but wouldn't it have made a difference if we could have had all stakeholders on board with that meaningful consultation? Or wouldn't it have had only been not just a 48 hours feel good, but transcending to a year-round feel good, in which we could have turned the city into something magnificent? I asked everyone who said that the weekend was a success. I said yes, but a short-lived one. And I asked them that what is the longevity? What is the plan going forward? Will the government interface with the main city council meaningfully? Will they put aside differences and say your outstanding taxes? And I won't get into taxes, and so that would be for the mayor. But whatever is outstanding for the mayor and city council, we will settle those arrears. We'll speak more on the subventions that weren't given in 2020, 2021, now entering 2022, right? As a soldier, I understand that the third mandate of the Guyana Defense Force is to assist in the economic development of Guyana. The commander-in-chief thereby speaks to where and commands his troops in terms of going out there and helping to make the country economically viable. And a clean country is a country that will be economically viable. But to my brothers and sisters in uniform, if they were given the main city council, the local authorities, these finances, these funding, these resources before, then we wouldn't have that parade that you were on over the last weekend. I may be the elephant, I may be poking the elephant in the room here, but sometimes we sit down, we don't understand what is going on. While people are going out there with rakes one morning, right? We could have had
And some of the rakes were upside down.
We could have had jobs created through this initiative, right? The same people,
Exactly.
some of them who are out there taking pictures of cleaning, some of them are errant in their arrears that they need to pay to the main city council, right? This fanfare cannot happen forever, because even to the best of folks said, yes, it looked great, but we can see through it. It is transparent. No matter how many people you have on board there, if the main or the primary governance of the city wasn't out there bracing you shoulder to shoulder and saying, yes, we can do this, or as Ganesh told me earlier, the Obama saying, yes, we can, then it was just for nothing. It was just a 48-hour feel-good exercise. And I'm still looking to see these same players come to a table now to tell us all, what will we do going forward? Are we going to be bringing out the Guyana Defense Force and the Joint Services quarterly now to do this as a show? No, I don't think so. Could we arrange for a memorandum of understanding between the Guyana Defense Force, because they have the machinery, and the main city council to do this periodically? Now, that would be something that we'd love to see going forward there. Could we see that the private sector, once furnished with all of the information that they have requested, coming to the table and saying, hey, we must do better in terms of our membership, and our members must be compliant with the main city council going forward.
Actually compliant with the laws of Guyana.
I've seen all sorts of persons from academic, from political background, from just street sense coming out and speaking to this thing here. But my thing is this: why should it only be a 48 hours feel good? Why can't it be something that we transcend throughout the year, throughout the next decade and centuries in this so-called Dubai that we're trying to build here? Why polarize it so much?
The government,
central government.
if you can hear me. That's not that, and I'll throw this question to Ganesh as I wrap up from you. You're talking about a 48-hour feel good. That's the PPP. They have a teacup vision. Their vision cannot go beyond 48 hours, clean up the place, and the place look good, so everybody could say, yeah, they're doing something. They don't have the capacity, the intellectual capacity, to think through a strategy. And also, their partisanship and racism doesn't allow them to think about that, because Georgetown mainly doesn't have their supporters. They just want to have, like you said, like Daniel said, I'm going to come to Ganesh. Daniel said that some of the areas that were problematic in terms of sanitation in the city remain. They didn't go into those areas, right? And that's because maybe it's not their constituent. They don't care. They just want the main areas that, you know, people see on a daily basis to look somewhat clean. And also they wanted to paint the council as incompetent. That here, the council can't manage its affairs in Georgetown, so we have to step in and do this for them. When they're deliberately withholding the funds from the city to get the job done. You're the local government shadow minister of local government, Ganesh. Can you speak to the issue of them having this so-called initiative in Georgetown without the involvement of the Georgetown Mayor City Council, as well as what Daniel spoke of, which is them deliberately again starving the regions for funds because they did not win those regions. And so the people's money, they think, belong to them, and they're withholding the money from these regions that they did not win, regions, towns, and NDCs.
All right. Good night again, Rickford. Good night to my colleagues, Amanza Walton, Desir, and Daniel Siram. I know you indicated to me that this is a 1 hour program. I see we're already 5 minutes into the program, but the discussion is healthy. So I guess if we have to go over the 1 hour, nothing is wrong with that. Let me start by saying...
It's not like you want to go to bed. It's all right.
Let me start by saying that the Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana is clear. Articles 71 to 78 speaks to local democracy, and it is understood that local democracy is important in this society, hence why it is in the Constitution. And the Constitution is not above, nobody is above the Constitution of this great country. And the tiers of governance gives that respect to neighborhood democratic councils, regional democratic councils, and then you have the national level, which speaks to policy making and leading a direction of growth for the country. As long as you have a government installed as this one is, that focuses on centralizing everything within their ambit so that they can achieve their own objective, which is primarily to fill their pockets, get rich, encourage cronyism and nepotism and the likes, you will have this level of problem. The coalition government, when they were in office, 2015 to 2020, must be commended for the return of local democracy to Guyana. We had local government elections in 2016, months after the coalition took office in 2015. We again had local government elections in 2018. So satisfying the Constitution, adhering to the Constitution, and respecting the laws of this country was something the coalition was very keen about. Local government election was due, and I would say is still due for this country. We should have had local government election before December of 2021. But this administration, callous as it is, with a zealot minister at the head, does not want to embrace local government election because they don't believe in empowering the people within their own constituencies. You see, the neighborhood democratic councils are elected officials that will satisfy the residents' requests. And they will also represent the NDC, the area in which they are from, so that they can be able to send a message to central government that this is the direction in which my community wishes to go. But the People's Progressive Party does not believe in empowering the people. They do not believe in educating the people. Because if they do that, then it will cause them to lose popularity. It will cause them to lose what they may term as their level of importance. And it will reduce their chances of filling their pockets. It will reduce their chances of actually being involved in all of these spending, and hence they're going to thief. It is as simple as that. Some people may want to judge the PPP as not understanding what they have to do. But I believe that these people, they understand what they have to do, but they are refusing to do it. Because if they do what is correct, it reduces their chances of getting rich the wrong way. And that is something that they love to do, get rich the wrong way. And that is what we have to understand. Putting monies into their pockets, that is their clear objective. And that is every act of them towards putting money in their pockets. And when you look at that cleanup exercise that they had, where they violated the art of consultation, Article 13 of our Constitution speaks to inclusionary democracy. It speaks to consultation. It speaks to respecting established structures and systems. And because they violated that, I believe the mayor was in perfect order to say that I cannot give my support for something where you merely want me for a photo opportunity. It would have been prudent and better on this wicked and demonic administration had they sat down with all stakeholders that are involved in the management of Georgetown. That includes Georgetown and its environments. That includes the mayor and city council. That includes the regional democratic council. That includes community development councils that are established and are existing in Georgetown and its environs, and central government. They should have sat at a table and craft a program or an agenda that does not only speak to a 48 hours cleanup exercise, but they should have looked in a long-term direction of how they can ably maintain the city and return it to the garden city state. Something that the coalition began. The consultations with the mayor and city council, had consultations with the regional democratic council and a number of ministries from central government when they began that cleanup process in 2015-2016. And the coalition never stifled these local democratic organs of the resources they need to ensure that they execute their duties. They were provided with the resources, and we have even went on to empower our respective local democratic officers, overseers within the local democratic system, received an additional $40,000 on their salary as a stipend from the ministry so that they can be well compensated to carry out their functions. There were
Ganesh, what do you think is responsible for this attitude? Do you think the PP government wants to build a one-party state in Guyana, and they feel that they could run over the city council because the so-called diplomatic corps that was so vocal last year when there was a previous government seem to be complicit with them now? So they feel they don't have to give an accountability to anybody. And also, do you think the PP believes in local democracy? Because when they were in power previously and during the previous government, when Jack Day was in power, when Ramtar was in power, there was no local government election for 20-something years. And now they've started off again with the same thing. I believe they don't believe in democracy. They want to turn Guyana into like Egypt or some autocratic society. So that's my personal view. But based on the record, one, do you think that the PP does not believe in democracy, at least local democracy or democracy period? And also, do you think it is that they feel offended that they did not win Georgetown or they do not govern Georgetown? So they're just going to operate like if it doesn't exist, don't under their constitutional obligations to grant subventions and give back the tax dollars to the people so that they could develop their community. What is it?
Rickford, you may have a belief that the PPP does not believe in democracy, but we have facts that point us in the direction to conclude that this cabal has no interest in democracy. Because democracy, first and foremost, requires consultation with stakeholders. We have in the National Assembly, for example, the Natural Resource Fund bill that caused the uproar the last parliament. There were no sensible consultation that was held. That was a hurriedly put together bill for passage so that they can go into the Natural Resource Fund and thief all the money. It is as simple as that. You have Region 4. Daniel Siram spoke to you just now about the budget for Region 4, where the councillors, they don't have any say in what is coming to the National Assembly for approval in their budget proposal for 2022. How can you draw a conclusion that that has anything to do with democracy? You have the same recent cleanup exercise that they had, where there was no consultation with the stakeholders, the mayor and city council, the regional democratic council. You have cash grants being distributed in areas where it is done in a manner of basically differentiating who are supporters of the PPP and perceived supporters of the coalition. You have cases where they're employing their own people in no proper organized way of transparency, and they're giving people money loosely. You have the sugar workers who received their $250,000, and when you compare it to public servants with their taxable 7%, you have a number of instances that are factual in nature to support the point that the People's Progressive Party does not believe in democracy. So it is not a case of one's belief. It is what we have before us that are evidence-based to draw that conclusion that this wicked and demonic set of people that we have managing our society, gearing us in a direction of separation rather than bringing us in unity, gearing us in a direction of them alone must inherit whatever is the patrimony of this country, filling their pockets at their own whims and fancies, not adhering to the Constitution, no belief in local democracy, a stink set of practice that can only cause one to conclude that we are heading down a path that is dangerous for our young people, that is dangerous for the future generation. And if we don't pull it back in order, and if we don't recognize that there is need for eminent change in the administration and to put people who are sensible enough to respect the Constitution, preserve it with a case of understanding that the future depends on how we lay the foundation, then we're heading down a wrong road, my brother.
Thank you. Amansa, would you jump in here? Does the PPP believe in democracy? And what's your view on the fact that we have such a divided society? There's political polarization, racial polarization, and you have diplomats contributing to the division of the country by participating in this project that's very divisive, ignores the main city council, undermines democracy in the country. And you have diplomats and private sector officials and everybody just going along with the PPP as though the Mayor City Council doesn't exist.
Rickford, I have a slightly different view, and I will say it this way: the diplomatic community, etc., could do this because we, the citizens of Guyana, are divided. Guyana is our country. And if we are to sound our voices against this, it will not happen. But the reality is that we are divided. And so, um, people take opportunities, people take advantage of this division and further their own agendas. I want to say here that the plot of the PPPC is clear. And this is where you and I differ. I think the PPPC, they're very sure about what they're doing. Um, and that is, they understand the importance of controlling Georgetown. They understand the importance of controlling Region 4, which is why you see they're approaching this aim of controlling Region 4 through several different mechanisms. One, they're undermining the largest municipality in Guyana. And the reason is very simple. They want to turn the citizens of Georgetown against a coalition run city. They understand that uh, obtaining governance of the Georgetown municipality is paramount in their overall plan. And so when you look at how carefully they orchestrate their actions, you see that it is a concerted effort to turn citizens against the current mayor, who represents the coalition, and to have them ease their way into power. That is the first thing. The other approach they're taking is this one through the electoral laws of splitting Region 4 up in that manner. And so we have to understand that the PPP is very clear about what they're about. Now, on a wider, more national scale, what you are seeing is the PPPC's commitment to destabilizing any institution that decentralizes power from themselves. And so you will find that they will continuously undermine local governance, because the whole concept of local governance is that people in societies and in communities are able to govern themselves, elect their leaders, and to be able to run their societies in the way they know best, having come from those societies and communities. So what you are seeing is an undermining of that, and consolidation of power centrally. And so that is what they are about. Whether it is to create a one party state or a one party ethnocracy, I am not sure. But what I know they are about is consolidating power. And this is why I keep making the point that we as citizens of Guyana have to jealously guard local government. Local government. Daniel made an important point that our lives are affected by every tier of governance in our communities, from the NDC officials that we elect all the way up to your regional officials, to your municipal officials. Every tier is affected, and so we have to understand that we require vigilance. Now, let me say this: the PPP thrives on the fact that we have short memories as Guyanese. And I say this very, very clearly because somebody has to say to our people that it is time that you wake up and understand the power that you, as a citizenry, that you have. They thrive on the fact that we forget things. We move on very quickly. From very topical and very important issues. And so the PPP continues, as Daniel said, bread and circus. They continue to distract with the most basic of amenities. Can you imagine the declaration of a safe space for families in 2022 in Guyana? is something to be heralded. When anybody who understands basic city planning understands that these are things that are built into a city or any community from its design stage. So they distract with these bells and whistles while they continue to undermine the democratic processes. And so Guyanese have to be vigilant. We have to be vigilant. We are not vigilant enough in safeguarding and securing our rights, Rickford. And we leave too many things up to chance. We leave too many, and I have no difficulty with prayer, but prayer has to be accompanied by action. We leave too much up to prayer. We can yes, but there's a role for action. And I come across, I know sometimes very harsh with people, but I'm saying that it is time that we wake up. I know, Rickford, that you're a proponent of maybe separatism and whatever, but have we
No,
fought
I'm not.
hard for
I'm
one
not.
Guyana? We haven't fought hard enough for one Guyana. I mean, we heralded MLK Day the other day, but do we understand what those people went through to secure the basic right to vote? And some of us would not even join a picket line to safeguard and defend our democracy. The PPP is doing what the PPP wants to do and has to do in accordance with their program. The question remains, what are we, the people, doing? What are we, the people, doing? And so this is not about you saying, oh, there's a part that citizenry and citizen activism has to play in this. And throughout history, you know that, you see that. The civil rights movement in the States was one such movement that heralded and ushered in the right of colored people in the United States. And so, Rickford, I have to emphasize the point. The PPP is marching on and doing what they want
They
to
want to do.
do
Correct.
with the full support of their supporters. And I guarantee you, there's some of their supporters that are punishing and that are suffering. But the mentality is, look, let me punish her under we own. That is the type of backward thinking that you have, not a situation where why can we not all as Guyanese enjoy the patrimony of this great nation? Why can't we? And so it is time for us to begin to evolve in the way that we look at things and to become more responsible and more mature citizens. So like I keep saying, the PPP will do what the PPP wants to do. The PPP has demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt that they do not care. They will enrich themselves. They will continue to erode our institutions. And this is the final point I want to make on this point. The PPP understands that if they erode our institutions, they make themselves the institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Any functioning democracy requires strong institutions. And if you look at the modus operandi of the PPP, it has always been to erode our democratic institutions. From their attack on the constitutional agencies, they would have, sought to remove their financial autonomy. The court, thankfully reversed that. Their attacks on the municipality and the local government organs. It is an attack against our institutions. And the people of Guyana must understand that if we allow our institutions to be eroded, we can kiss all hope of a free and democratic Guyana goodbye. And so
Amanda,
let me make
Amanda,
a point.
go ahead. Go
The
ahead.
final point that I want to caution our citizens is you must notice that this erosion of our institutions is never really couched in blatant terms all the time. It is masked in a form of good. So yes, cleaning up the city is good. We need a clean city. So it is couched as a good, but what it is doing is eroding a significant and a key democratic institution called the municipality. And as the young people said, don't fall for the okie doke, do not drink the Kool-Aid. Understand what is happening, my people.
Amanda, two things. Someone made a comment here that Amanza Guyanese live in fear. And until we can get, somebody else said, until we can get representation, that the police don't shoot us down and the PP doesn't attack us and put us in jail, that is why people are not, I guess that's the sentiment, that's why people are not coming out. Second, you said that the PPP supporters have the mentality and have demonstrated their satisfaction that they're rather punished under the PPP rather than have another form of another party in government. And you said that's a backward thing. And I want to give you an opportunity to clarify that, because I know they're going to jump and say you said all PPP supporters are backward and it's a racist or whatever. So just explain exactly what you mean by that so that they don't have the opportunity to attack you for saying, because what you're saying is perfectly correct. It's a backward mentality. They rather not speak up for their own benefit. They rather suffer under the party they support. But I want to give you that opportunity to clarify that and say exactly what you mean by that comment.
Rickford, I said exactly what I meant. You see, we have to understand that there has to come a point in time that we are beyond worrying about being attacked for speaking the truth. I am beyond that. I define me, and I've said what I've said, that in this society, there are many who prefer to suffer in silence because the man or woman in State House looks like them, and I have no apologies for saying that. You see, there has to come a point in time when the future of your country and the direction that your country is heading in is more important than you appearing to be PC to people who are bent on misunderstanding you. I have come to the conclusion that there are people who are bent on misunderstanding whatever you say.
Mm-hmm.
So I am of the view that I will say it as simply and as clearly as I can. I am beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
You can attack me all you want. I have spoken the truth. And so my point is, unless we understand, and unless
Exactly.
those that would support this government in their undemocratic behavior understand that, hey, you actually deserve more. And hey, more is actually possible. And hey, you actually do not have to go to bed without a meal. Hey, you don't actually have to be wondering how you're feeding your children tomorrow. When they understand that that is possible, the paradigm is going to begin to change. Some me don't business who attack me.
Country,
Listen,
country over party, rights over party. That's what it is.
listen to me. I love this land, you know. And I am beyond. And unless we face harsh truths, my dear, we are going to remain here. So they could misconstrue all they want. I figure your boy Freddie gonna write something tomorrow. Let them do it. I don't care. This is about us understanding that our nation is at a crossroad. And unless we wrestle this thing out of the ditch, we cannot and we will not see a Guyana that will be all that she can be. You talk about the issue of fear. This is what it comes down to. Fear of being censured, fear of being judged, fear of people misconstruing me. I draw the example of Martin Luther King again. You think they didn't have this threat of people shooting them down when they crossed that bridge at Selma? Did they not have it? They had it. But there comes a point in time, Rickford, that you have to do it afraid. Even if you're frightened, you got to do it because you understand that the life of your children and of your children's children depends on how you conduct yourself today. I'm sorry to be so passionate about it, but I feel very deeply for my
That's what
country.
the conversation is about. Danielle, switching the topics a little bit, piggybacking exactly off of Amanza's last point. We had a discussion over the weekend, and it was brought to our realization that every single African Guyanese person that has a talk show to help get their message out has been arrested. Whether it's Kadiki Amsterdam, whether it's Mr. Matthews, whether it's Sherrod Duncan, everybody in Guyana has been arrested. Are we going down an autocratic road where the government is using or abusing the laws of the country to stifle dissent? And what do you make of the silence of the private sector, of civil society? And second, what do you make of this attempt to criminalize everybody who speaks out against racism? It's something that is emerging. If you're condemning racism, you're a criminal. Arrest him, deport him, extradite him. I see somebody attacking. I see Freddie Kissoon has now started this thing where people must be arrested for speaking out against PPP racism and the injustice. Where are we heading as a society when the PPP is cultivating a class of sycophants to say, if you speak out against the PPP, it's a crime, and we must use the criminal codes to punish you?
Rickford, it's interesting that you brought that up because it's one of the things that I had on my agenda to speak on this evening. I know you had your own agenda, but when me and Amanza are in the room with you, we have to set you a bit straight.
Confuse the whole story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I'd like to bring you to something. We're not at a crossroads where this wasn't foreseen before. And Plato said that good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. And I mean, these words were spoken centuries ago, and they still have the bearing here now today. And then Cicero said, the closer the collapse of an empire, the crazier its laws. I mean, my brothers and my sister on this call, I chose those two quotes because they have been resonating in me for the past 48 hours after I've reread them. And here we are now, but here we are where we don't have to put those quotes into a tablet in concrete or on a scroll. We're fortunate to have something called the social media. We're fortunate to be in a technological era where the advent of social media has a direct, huge impact on society. I saw something today, and don't quote me on it, but they were saying that the funding for BBC now will be is in question based on what Parliament thinks that the allotment should be. And one would wonder if internationally also that there's some amount of censorship that is going on. I think that now more than ever, when we speak about the rights of a person in terms of freedom of speech and freedom of expression, is that we must be very cognizant of what we're speaking of here. Because of yourself, Mr. Matthews, Mr. Benchcap, of course, the Honorable Sheriff Duncan, right, David Hines, and some other political activists, talk show hosts, who don't only speak on a number of issues, but you also educate, you inform, right, and you bring awareness to the people who need it the most. Sometimes we sit here and we're in the dark. Even to some of my close family and friends, sometimes I speak to them and I tell them what is going on, and they're like, but we don't read that in the papers, we don't see it. And I say to them that we put it out there, but we are not amplified enough. And actually, we are being censored right now. Some of our members are before the courts to be muted. And it's leading to something that is called precedent. Because now that they're using these laws against our people, they're setting the bar very low as to what the laws are actually supposed to use for and enforce. So I wouldn't be surprised if the cybercrime unit is overwhelmed now with people in the neighborhood who get wrong that want to lash out and so because of use of derogatory terms. Not saying that if you're not somewhat affected that you shouldn't go and make a report, but this is the criteria now we're bringing it down to that level. And when we look at what is going on and the arming and sometimes the instructions given to our military and paramilitary forces within the country, we wonder if logical thinking or critical thinking is taking place at those levels, or if persons are only worried about keeping their jobs. And basically, they want to gain favor from their political masters. And of course, I think that society will say that the latter is happening in Guyana here currently. But news for everyone. that whatever is happening here in Guyana, needless to say, how silent persons are, and it's being recorded. And we have seen that persons who would have committed crimes, atrocities, many years back, it came it, it came it came back to them afterwards, and they had to face the music in terms of dealing with those issues. So while you may have the upper hand at this juncture, and while you may think that what you're doing is good because you're allowed to keep your job and you're allowed to please your political masters, right? It's downright not the right thing. I can remember speaking to some members of parliament the other day when the Honorable Sherrod Duncan was invited to the station and then arrested after. Right? And I was speaking to how society now has gone down to the level of arresting members of parliament, right? Placing them on bail, enormous amount of bail, and then placing them before courts and persons not coming to the court and then being further placed on bail. I mean, these things might sound like a comedy that we're living in, but it is the actual reality that we face here every day. Myself,
Daniel,
Amanza.
do you think, as a follow-up to that comment you made, is very important. Do you think the judiciary is turning a blind eye to the political abuse of the justice system?
Well, as the saying goes, the law is supposed to be blind, but not this blind at this point in time. I think that the information before them is glaring in terms of what is transpiring here in Guyana. But we have a lot of gymnasts and we have a lot of maneuvering going on here, right? So the laws that we have here are becoming very malleable in terms of, the political gymnastics that they're using to set some precedent. But we can only stay silent for this much because I know I'm not a lawyer, but I know that twisting and turning certain amount of jurisprudence, if I'm wrong here, Amanza, please correct me, right? It sets a precedent not only for in Guyana, but it affects other lands in which are governed by the same judicial laws. And, funny thing that will happen here is that countries who would have had a lot to say in the Guyanese elections, the general regional elections 2020, when it's time for their general and regional elections in their country, I hope they're strapping tight for what is coming, because the people have listened, they have recorded, and they're now educated in terms of what they can do and what they cannot do. Similarly, the arms, the joint services, right? I take this time to speak to them through this forum as a past member, right, and a proud member. And I remind them, right, to be professional. I remember every morning we woke up and we said, I'm a professional in the Guyana Defense Force. Service is my motto. I don't know if that is still happening now, but it was very much of a reminder at 5:30 in the morning when you stood to raise the golden arrowhead to speak those words, and it meant something. And when we look around, we see all kinds of nonsense that are going on. And I can only use this time to remind my brothers and sisters in uniform, servicemen, to be professional, because you are being recorded. Whether you think that you get away with the issues here in a short term, right? Whether you think that the government will always be there to protect you. But one day will come, right? As they always say, moon a run till they catch them. And we will get justice. Justice will be served. We can sit here, we could speak on a number of things. We can speak to atrocities, we can speak to poor governance and so, right? But the longest rope has an end. And I'm beginning to think that end we'll be seeing it soon, because we see a society in which the walls are closing in very closely. We see the diplomatic community has not only been silent, but has been very strategic in their punches thrown towards the government, in terms of stating that certain members of their government and people from their countries are being given a lot of red tape when coming to Ghana, in stating and reminding the government of consultation after the atrocity of a natural resource bond bill was made into an act last December. We see that members of the National Assembly could not stand idly by and allow such atrocities to happen without not putting an input, a physical input that is, into the governance of this country. And kudos to my colleagues, right? Kudos to them. And we
Daniel,
stand beside, just a
I'm
second,
getting a message here to ask
we
you a
stand
question.
beside We stand beside our members of parliament, or opposition members of parliament, my brothers and sisters there, and we tell them that you did nothing wrong. Because in the eyes of the actual Guyanese people who have to put our shoulders to the wheel to ensure that those monies from the natural resource bill and the loans and whatever and the debt incurred by this country is paid off and the generations to come, we understood why people behave how they behave. It's not mad people that you're dealing with, but if you provoke people enough, they turn into mad people and they act a certain way. And this is the road that we're heading down, right? It starts in a formal setting, and then you find it happening in informal settings when people just can't take it anymore. When people realize that in the hard guava season, in the month that is called January, right, that ends can't meet after they have paid off all of their debts and their bills by the end of this month, and realize that 7% is nothing, right? According to some local commentators, some of the monies that they have paid people to do certain things could have been re-injected into the public servants. And I always speak to the public servants, and I'll say it under any government and successive government. I have always said it. So public servants, specifically with regards to any person in the medical field, in the educational field, or in the military, paramilitary field, should be given 100% a one-up every month, a double in their salaries. Our salaries compared to the countries that we look up to are an atrocity to those persons trying to make ends meet. I remember the other day they were outlining the program for housing, and I was very happy to see that, especially when they mentioned the term young professionals. But when you check the cost for that housing, I don't have the figures before me now, but I can return with them. And you check that what a young professional earns in this country and put it to a house and probably a motor car that they would like to buy, starting that life, it's nothing, it's crumbs compared to what they can actually receive from a loving and caring government, which we do not have right now. So here we sit here, colleagues, this evening. I know we came in to speak here on one thing, but once we have the platform, we have it. I think that the people who are listening and viewing us here could understand that we understand your plight. We understand
Daniel,
exactly what you're
let me
going
jump in
through.
here. There's a Guyanese leader in not in New York State who is a elected official in another state. Well, someone of Guyanese descent, and she's asking me to ask you, as the regional chairman of Region 4, if you're experiencing racial discrimination and political discrimination coming from the government, the central government.
I personally am not a person that is. I personally am not directly affected by any racial
No,
discrimination.
your observation of your
But from
constituents
my
being discriminated
observation,
against.
from my general observation, especially from first taking office, yes, there is discrimination. There's discrimination in how persons are being hired at government entities. There's discrimination with how people are being fired from government entities. There's discrimination to how people are gaining access to government funding. There's discrimination to how people are gaining access to government grants. There's discrimination to every single aspect of this government. And especially if you're of a certain ethnic group and collectively a part of a certain political party, then you're in double trouble.
Okay, thank you. Ganesh, as we wrap up, let me come to you with regard to the first the first question I asked Daniel. What's your view on criminalization of dissent in Guyana? All of the talk show hosts in Guyana who are Afro-Guyanese have been arrested. We have a situation where the government is even trying to act extraterritorially to try to muzzle people. And in addition to that, you have all of their supporters attacking people, calling them all sorts of names, making death threats. The Guyana police force is not doing anything. A man's has been attacked. Guyana police force is not doing anything. I'm pretty sure you see all these nasty, hateful words that are embarrassing and insulting and threatening. Guyana police force is not taking any action. I personally have been the subject of so many death threats till there's a federal investigation. being supported by the government. There's somebody who has made a death threat against me on her finale's personal Facebook page. It has not been removed, even though we wrote to the police. There's a death threat against me currently on the police Facebook page, which several people have condemned. The police has not removed it. What is your view also of the fact that the police seem to be only serving the PPP constituency?
Well, let me say first of all, Rickford, before I go into the answer to those questions, that I must piggyback on what Danielle said last there in terms of discrimination. And I must also say that there is discrimination in the awarding of contracts and the manner in which the contracts are being awarded. In our system, you have the Regional Procurement and Tender Administration Board. There are 10 Regional Procurement and Tender Administration Boards in the 10 respective RDCs. And the problem started from the composition of these boards. The laws of Guyana, the Procurement Act of 2003, speaks to the composition of these boards. And the one criterion is that there must be two representatives from the regional democratic councils elected by the regional democratic council to sit on the board. And we have this regime selecting people from the regions that were won by the APNU AFC. When you look at Danielle's region, Region 4, and you look at Region 7 and Region 10, the regions that were won by the coalition, there was no elected decision in terms of who are to sit on these boards. And the mischief happens there. The mischief happens there in terms of when you are awarding contracts. And then you have the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board with the same kind of operation. If one is to look at a ratio in terms of the awarding of contracts and you look at the skin texture of the people who are receiving these contracts and you also look at their experience in the construction industry or the service providing industry, you are left to conclude that this administration is focusing not only on enriching themselves, their friends, their family, cronyism, and nepotism at its best, but it's about trying to push away a certain ethnic group in this country. And it worries me when you talk about one Guyana, but your practice is one that is going down a direction of two or three or four Guyanas. And I find it extremely hypocritical and duplicitous that a president will continue to talk about one Guyana, go to the National Assembly and talk about one Guyana. And there are so many evidence-based arguments that were put to him and put in the open platform with reference to separation, with reference to discrimination, with reference to basically favoring one over the other, and you seem to not want to do anything about it. So it is very, very worrying that that is the state we find ourselves in. And then you want to create a picture as though we are not experiencing these problems. Put it in what I will say as terms that the educated grouping will understand clearly. But I will like to tell you that there are actual examples pass through when they make or draw these conclusions. I remember I was at Suddy Bus Park and there were complaints coming from persons there, hire car drivers, talking about cost of living and how high it is, talking about everything going up, talking about how difficult they're finding it to live in Guyana. And notwithstanding them saying all of that, their conclusion was, what we gonna do? We one day in office. What we gonna do? That is simply what Amanza was saying. And
Exactly.
it exists It exists. There are people in this country who think along that line. They think along that line that because it's somebody who looks like me that is holding the office, that means that whether we punish or not, we got to keep them there. And Amanza was accurate in her statement. But we can rid our country of that thinking if there is greater focus on education, if there is greater focus on educating our people, lifting them out of that misery that they find themselves in. And you see it at the level of the University of Guyana. And I always say, Rickford Burke, that there are educated Indians in this society that do not subscribe to the practice of the PPP. Daniel Siram is in
Absolutely.
front of you, and I am here also. And there are many
Absolutely.
more like us
And
who
I
are
say that all the time.
conscious. Yes, and we are able to judge for ourselves. Now, I am not saying that the PPP don't have educated Indians too. They do. But the question is, what do they align themselves to? And what are the benefits that they gain, which causes them to conflict with their conscience, which causes them to conflict with their religious conviction, or which causes them to separate themselves from that belief that they must do what is right. And that is the context in which one must understand the practice of this regime and how people align themselves to the regime. I want to say to you that the talk show host Sherrod Duncan and the many others that are being targeted it's an attempt to silence us because they want to control the dissemination of information. They want to control the narrative and what is put out there. They want to control and create an image as though all is good and glorious. And they want to hide the wickedness, the practice that is causing pandemonium in our country. We talked about the manner in which you have made the distribution of the COVID cash grant. They're saying that every family got $25,000. I am maintaining that is not true. There are there are evidence to support that they were in Wakenham underneath a coconut tree distributing the $25,000 to people as they were coming to them. And there are cases where they were in Iflot, in Denhamstel, in Parfait Harmony, going into people's home, verifying that there is a kitchen there, want to see the lavatory facility, want to see the bedroom, and a whole host of other requirements before the 25,000 is given to them. They know that there are more than one families living in homes. But once you are of a certain ethnicity, you have to go through a rigorous process to verify that it's 3 or 4 families there. And if you're of
Okay.
a
Okay.
certain other ethnicity, you just get it like that. We,
Danishma, what
Rickford,
do you think is
cannot.
responsible for that? What
Well,
is, because
it
I
is the
can't understand.
concept. It is
If this is
no,
Guyanese money,
Rickford.
mhm,
It is the concept of control and domination in terms of wanting to have one society where a certain grouping alone elevate and another is left below. That
we
is
call
as
that
simple
supremacy.
as it is.
Supremacy.
And well, ethnic supremacy one may want to term it as, but the point that we have to pay very careful attention to is the lack of the administration focusing on educating the nation. You see, if this administration only go down the road of educating this nation, they will continue to lose support. And you see that point that Amanza made, where she spoke about because it's we own in there, let us go down the road and stay with what has happened. It is something that they have inherited from their foreparents. It is something that has been in practice. I grew up, Rickford, in a predominant PPP community. I enjoyed playing with friends and so on who come from PPP stronghold background. And I grew up knowing that there was one kind of practice that if you do certain things a certain way, there's certain other things that can happen to you and for me it was racism. And I saw that after I moved away from that society, attended the University of Guyana, mixed with fellow human beings that are of different ethnicity and of different religious background, different society upbringing, and so on, engage and understand and appreciate and participate in understanding each other, that I recognized that society and education plays a great role in one seeing things differently. So if there is that opportunity to move us forward, it lies in education, and it lies in the exposure of our citizens to better themselves. And we have to go down that road, my brother. If we want to see a unified Guyana, if we want to see a Guyana that is built for the future generation, and the resources that we have currently are sustained to ensure that they are maintained, then if we want to see that, then education is the best opportunity that can afford us such. And if I may close and say that all your listeners, and wherever they can echo their voice, promote education. Tell everyone that you know that the most valuable thing you can give to them, it is education. It lifts them out of the misery they can find themselves in, and it is way less expensive than ignorance. Thank you.
Well
Thank you
said.
very much. Thanks. Very insightful contribution there.
Extremely,
Very insightful.
extremely insightful. And this is why I think
Jump in,
um,
Amanda. Go right ahead.
it has been a call from the days of Forbes Burnham that we must have free education from nursery to university. It is that exact premise upon which that call is founded, that an educated nation is a progressive nation, and the standard and quality of life of its citizenry is far more superior. There's a point that Ganesh made when he spoke about economic empowerment of one sector of society. And that's something that we have to hone in on, because I believe that there is a nuance there that we ignore, and that is that the PPPC elite, and I keep saying they're an elitist party, they have no interest in the economic empowerment of their supporters over and above the extent to which it allows them to remain in power. You see it in the sugar industry. Sugar could have been that industry could have been right sized, and those men and women who work in the sugarcane industry could have been diversified into other crops that would have earned them far more than they're earning cutting cane. But what did the PPPC do? They chose to quote unquote pander to them on the pretext that they have their best interest at heart. The PPPC does not have even the interest of the supporters that they get their votes from to get into office. And so you see them doling out these $25,000, which is a crumb compared to the billions that they and their friends and their family are able to pilfer and to steal from the people of Guyana. And so they do this discrimination purposely to empower one group as against the other, to maintain the division whilst they pilfer and plunder and rape the treasury. And that is their modus operandi. And it is for Guyanese to understand and to wake up to this reality. They're giving the sugar workers $250,000. People say, oh, they're buying votes, etc. But you know what they are wanting to precipitate? A call from a certain set of people that said, no, man, that is unfair, because the way they translate that to their supporters is that, you see, they want y'all get money. They're against you. They're against sugar thing. So they do this thing deliberately to foment division and racism in the society and distract the population with that, whilst they make off like bandits. The point that Ganesh makes about the procurement system is paramount. You have a government that has access to all of the money in the Natural Resources Fund with a broken procurement system. Do we understand the magnitude of theft that allows? Do we understand that it is our children who will be paying for this mishandling of our national patrimony? Nobody else. It's the
Legal
children and grandchildren.
thievery, Amanza.
You
Legal
understand?
thievery.
That will have to pay for it. And so I think what we have to start doing is educating our people, as Gani said. I support that 100%. That is something nobody will ever be able to take away from you. But more importantly, we have to begin to speak the uncomfortable truths. And we have begun doing that on this program, because those are the foundational pillars on which this level of dysfunction rests. And when we can unearth that, and when we can unseat that, what we will do is raise the consciousness of our people, and we will see with raised levels of consciousness always comes elevated quality of life, elevated standard of living. And so I want to close by saying that we are here for the people. We are supporting you. We have your back, but we also need you. It is a symbiotic effort. And together, we can deliver a quality of life for all Guyanese. We can deliver a Guyana where our waking reality is a stable 24-hour electricity supply, a stable 24-hour water supply, where our infrastructure is superior, where we can have safe communities, where people can work and earn an honest dollar. That is the type of society that we want to see. That is the waking reality we want to have. And as Guyanese, we must begin to be discontented with the notion of having to jump on a plane to do it. We have to become discontented with that. And to do that, we have to demand more. We have to, first of all, resolve in ourselves that we deserve more. Because unless we as a people think that we deserve more, we will never demand more. And power concedes nothing without a demand.
Mm-hmm.
So we will continue to go into the communities to speak to our people, because I am hopeful that a light is dawning. The boys, Danny said, moon around till they catch them. Well, I say the people of Guyana must be the dawn. We must be the dawn.
Before we wrap up, Amanda, I want to ask you with regard to what I mentioned to Danielle and Ganesh, with so many arrests of all of the talk show hosts, and soon you speak out, whether it's on Facebook or not, against them or the PP and their supporters, you now get arrested. So what they're doing is using the police to basically stifle dissent, and they feel invincible because of the money they have behind them, and that they're about to steal, that they have been stealing, and the fact that they believe they have the support of the representatives of the international community in Guyana. Do you think we are at a point in time in Guyana, seeing that we are all now reflecting on the role and the impact of Martin Luther King in the evolution of a just society in America? Do you think we are approaching the juncture in Guyana where we need to have a strident civil rights movement to represent and protect and fight for the rights and liberties of Guyanese?
Rickford, before Amanza goes, Amanza, let me remind you, with Rickford's permission, that you also have a case at the cybercrime unit. I have a case at the cybercrime unit, but to date, the police can't figure out how to handle Amanza's case.
These are complaints against people in the government that have attacked you.
Yes, people in the PDP that attacked us.
Yes,
and the police can't do nothing about that.
One man threatened my life. One
The,
man.
Yes,
the,
because
everybody in the
they
diaspora.
didn't use threatening words such as trench, crapo, and jagabats. Please
No,
understand that. They did not
no,
use those
no.
words.
He
Go
did
on.
not use those words. What
They
he
did
said
things. They
is
did
that I
things that
needed
are
to be
way
marked,
subtle.
that my home needed to be targeted, and my family must be targeted with sleepless nights.
And
That is
They
not
also called
Get
you
that is not
this?
as
a low
bad
life.
as Trench Crapo and Jagabat.
Listen to me. The man seems to have, I don't know, he seems to be very fixed
And who said,
on
Amanda, who said that? You should be targeted, your family should be targeted?
Roshan Khan.
Okay.
And I did make a complaint. And up to now, he is yet to be called to the station for an interview.
Well, he's a supporter of the PPP.
He is a
Listen,
supporter.
the, the,
And
re-
this is
Amanda, before you go, listen, the Ghana police force has an image problem. And I see they issued a statement the other day when I said their image is in tatters. It's in tatters. Their image is in tatters because everybody in the diaspora feels that the Ghana police force is the police force for the PPP and their supporters. And that's a fact. I wrote the police force complaining about death threats against me. The FBI is asking me why the Ghana police force has death threats against people and terroristic threats. And they laughed at how unprofessional and incompetent the Ghana police force looks to the rest of the world. Amanza made complaints. There are several people that made complaints. For the former deputy police commissioner, acting Paul Slow, made a complaint against Adel Nanlal. Nothing has happened. The Ghana police force does not care about the rights, serving or protecting people who are not PPP. That's it. And apparently that's the instruction they got from the government. But go ahead,
so
Amanda.
for example, when we were
Let
dealing
Amanda
with,
then I'll come to you, Daniel.
when we were dealing with Sherrod's matter, they had to wait for instructions as to whether he should see his counsel. I couldn't fathom that. Counsel must have access to their client at all points in time. Yet when we turned up there was a point in time that we couldn't see him. Why? Oh, we were waiting further instructions.
Political instructions.
Yes, but listen, there are a group of us here, and some of us on this panel who have resolved, well, if you can charge me and run you up the court steps every day, then so be it. That's it. If that's what they
my
gotta do,
attitude too.
they do what they gotta do. We do what we gotta do. So the point is, yes, there's absolutely a need for a civil rights organization. Guyana is 50-something years old. We're just about a half a century. If you trace the evolution of, for example, the United States, that's 200 and something years old, if I remember my history correctly, you will see that there came a time in that country's history when it came to the abolition of slavery, when it came to the civil rights movement, that you needed to have that in order to secure the equality of citizens. And Guyana is at that juncture.
Even though it was enshrined in the Constitution, it was not being enforced.
Even though it was enshrined in the Constitution, as is so many other things, your freedom of speech, you had to have a civil society and a civil rights movement that sought to have those enforced. And so the time for Guyana is now. We are at that crossroad in our history where we have to secure our civil rights and our civil liberties. There's one point I want to make here, Rickford, as it relates to the international community. The PPPC regime has socialized the international community with one narrative. They cannot present the evidence. We say people have been victimized with COVID relief. Where is the evidence? And that is the narrative that, in my assessment, they are using. What they do not say to the international community is that they have used the system to make sure that the opposition does not have the resources to get that empirical information. So they've cut our budget by close to 70%, the opposition's budget. The Speaker of the National Assembly, where is the one place that you ought to be allowed to go and ask questions and receive information from the
accurate information.
accurate information. The Speaker of the National Assembly, as we have said, is complicit now in making Parliament a tool of oppression. So you literally have no recourse. And so it is for the people of Guyana to begin to speak up.
So you're saying
Because
that,
all we
you're saying
can't
that
be lying.
you asked for the evidence, how many people have gotten contracts, how many
Right,
people have gotten
right.
COVID grants and so on. In Parliament, you asked for a list of all the names. They're not providing it, and they're saying you can't provide the evidence.
Yes. Meanwhile, they have cut your budget. So you can't even hire scrutineers to go into your communities to gather that information. So it's a catch-22. And so it is for Guyanese to begin to speak up. Bombard, all of them got emails. These diplomatic community members, they all have public emails. Send your complaints there so that they know and understand that we are not fabricating these things, that these things are not figments of our imagination, but they are happening in real life, they're happening in real time, and Guyanese are being affected. And so we have to become more militant. We are absolutely at the point where we need a civil rights organization or a civil rights movement, because this is not a moment, this is a movement that you have to create to be able to deal with this.
Activists and attorneys in Guyana, I challenge you to get that movement going. Daniel, finally, you got something to say?
I'd like to start off with my conclusion this evening. And it was fantastic being on this evening with my sister Manzo, my brother Ganesh, and of course, the Right Honorable Rickford Burke G. Right.
No right or honorable to Rickford. Rickford is just plain Rickford.
But what I would say is that, what we're living right now it goes with a saying: elections have consequences.
2 minutes all around, everybody to wrap up. Go ahead. You're on your 2 minutes. Go ahead.
And you know something, with elections having their consequences, this is what we see here, right? But however, I can tell you that, we have been doing our due diligence. I know my brothers and sisters in the National Assembly, they are inundated with information, and they have been making and ensuring that they have been recorded properly. Us at the various council have been doing the same thing, and people might say that we are only doing that, but you see, when it's time to make the claim, the same evidence that they speak about, we have it on paper in black and white, and that is what we're doing, right? Currently, we spoke about a number of issues this evening: the rising cost of living, all of the grants, the issues relating to local democracy, and everything comes into fall here to poor governance of the installed PPP government currently. And to the so-called professionals that are taking these instructions, I wish them well, and I'll tell them that it's being recorded. And to my brothers and sisters in the joint services, and I went just now to stop you, Rickford, because I hate when people generalize an organization in which I know that the majority of people are truly good. And I believe within the joint services, the majority of our brothers and sisters in there, right, are truly good men and women of discipline and of honor, right? However, we do see that persons being taken political directions directly. It's glaring, it's blatant nowadays in society.
The leadership of the police force, I'm talking about the leadership. Cabal there.
To all our viewers and listeners, we sat here this evening, we've spoken on a number of issues. While I can tell you, while we are telling you them, and some of you may only now be hearing about them, and some of you have been hearing about them for a number of times now, those same diplomatic missions, they're not stupid. They are backed by their home country, and they're equipped with the intelligence unit that affords them to know what is going on here. And just as we know it in the opposition, they know it, and probably they have a clearer vision than us, because they have the resources to tell them that. So I say here this evening, I'm not putting you to rest here this evening, my brothers and sisters, viewers all. I'm telling you that a day of reckoning is coming, and it's coming very soon. And I'm thankful that we live in an era in which we can capture all that is happening. Right? And I tell every single activist out there, everyone who is trying to make a difference, and I speak to 3 points: anyone who is trying to inform, educate, or provide awareness, you have my support, and and I think that you, and I know you have the support of my colleagues. Right, Rickford, we always thank you. Some people say that you're very contentious and conflicting sometimes, but sometimes you have to hit that those nerves in order to get people to understand what is going on here. Feverishly, myself, Ganesh, and Amanza speak on some issues, and people only understand when we speak at that moment. And then they forget that these issues affect them until they go on the road and they see a pothole, or they see that water isn't coming through the taps, or they see that electricity is gone, and bulbs and fridge and everything are malfunctioning. And this is the day, and this is the life and year that we're living in. You see, we're reminded that 23 years of the PPP, right, we literally crossed this country. Yes, all of us would have come up in the 23 years, but imagine from 2015 to 2020, we never spoke ill of GWI and the water issues. We never spoke ill of GPL and the blackouts, right? And I mean, we never really had such a filthy city in 5 years. So the evidence is there for those who need the evidence. It's there, and it was led by a man named David Arthur Granger. And I know most people don't want to hear his name, but I'm telling you that a man named David Arthur Granger led the way for 5 years, and that is what happened there, right? As I sit here this evening, I'll end on a light note. I know that the COVID pandemic is still with us. It's something that I hold very close now because the numbers are getting very concerning and very alarming. If you're sick, I'm not a medical professional, but I'm the head of the regional COVID task force with the Demerara Hiking region, region number 4. And if you're sick and you truly know that you're sick, do the responsible thing and exclude yourself from being in crowds and being at your workplace. Please notify, however, your supervisors and your managers of these issues, right? The health policy is currently being put out by the government. Those are the ones that we have to abide by. And I've been making the call for them to sensitize the general population on these new policies that are coming out in terms of testing and in terms of what you should do if you contract or if you are in the presence of somebody or in contact with somebody with COVID-19. You can seek more guidance from my office, or you can go to my Facebook page. And I'm guessing any of my colleague MPs here too, to seek the necessary information. Unlike some people, we are actually here to help and provide good governance. Our resources may be limited, but we go above and beyond to provide the necessary services that you may need. And I know for a fact, sometimes we come out of our very own pockets to do it with the meager salaries that we have, but nevertheless, right, we make it do, as the Guyanese people say. I look forward to seeing the Guyanese even with us in opposition, that we can come to a table with all stakeholders and have that meaningful discussion. I look forward to seeing that the discrimination that is currently unfolding before us stop immediately. And I look forward to that this one Guyana that the government, especially the president, professes actually comes to fruition, or anything of even a percentage close to fruition. My
thank you.
brothers and sisters, I thank you for having me on, Rickford. I'm wrapping up now, right?
I
You
see
see, when
Ganesh looking at you very silly. Ganesh is concerned with
when you
bedtime.
put on me, Amanza and Ganesh, this is what you will have, Rickford. Right? But thank you for
That's
having me
fine.
on.
It's
Right?
always a pleasure having you
It's
guys.
always a pleasure to be on, and I'm glad that I made this first program for the year with my two partners in crime, as you would call us, Rickford, the hard way. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, please be safe, take care of yourselves, and know that we are not that silent voice. We are dissenting voice, because the only way that evil can triumph is when good men do nothing. And you will see that the three of us, we are always battling. Thank you for
You guys
having me
bring
on.
light. Democracy dies in darkness. You guys are the light. Thank you very much, Daniel.
That's
Ganesh,
why
I know.
that's why the government giving us blackout.
I know. Ganesh, your 2 minutes.
Thank you.
I know you're dying to go to
Thank
bed.
you very much. Thank you very much, Rickford. I want to borrow the clock in Daniel's house because he seemed to have an extended 2 minutes. But as the shadow minister of local government and regional development, I want to take the opportunity to salute Daniel and the other two regional chairs that we have in Region 7 and Region 10, Kenneth Williams and Deron Adams. I know it is not an easy task for them to put up with this regime that wants to undermine local government elections and local government system, something that we will not allow. I want to also salute the mayor of Georgetown, His Worship Pandit Ubraj Narain, and all the other local government officers that are standing up against the attempt to kill democracy and local democracy in this country. It really takes true strength to stand up against this regime and their action, and people who do it, they must be saluted. We have three persons here as your guests tonight, and I must say that all of us are executive members of the Mighty People's National Congress Reform. We sit as members on the Central Executive Committee of the PNCR, and this is the new breed of leadership. This is the new team, the new strength, the young visionary leadership that the country is dying for. And we come as servants prepared to serve because we have that belief that a better Guyana must be there for the future generation. And as long as we continue to think that way, then a better Guyana must come. Daniel speaks about the day that is coming. Well, the people who are before you are the ones to ensure that it comes. And you who are listening must join with us to ensure that it happens. You know, it was Carl Greenidge who said at the late Winston Murray's funeral that Guyana can, with visionary leadership, be lifted from the nightmare it finds itself in.
Hmm.
And that process began in 2015. And I wouldn't say it was short lived. I will say that the pause button was pressed because the elections of 2020 is still contentious and there's still petitions in court. We cannot go away from or move away from reminding the viewers that that election was basically marred in anomalies, abnormalities, and irregularities, and the
Fraud.
evidence were found in the national recount exercise of which all three of us participated. Daniel was in the recount center. Amanza and myself, we were in the recount center. Daniel was dealing with tabulation. And we can speak about the 49 ballot boxes that were found with no statutory documentation to verify the votes in those ballot boxes. We can speak confidently about people's names being ticked off. And when you verify the names, they are either dead or out of this country and did not return on or before March 2nd, 2020. We can speak about unsigned oaths of identity, missing oaths of identity. We can speak about missing poll books. We can speak to a number of anomalies, abnormalities, and irregularities because we saw it. This is not hearsay. This is first-hand information that we were exposed to in the national recount of 2020 elections, where Claudette Singh herself said that is very, very worrying. She may not have said it in those words, but she did express concerns at the amount of irregularities, anomalies, and abnormalities that were unearthed. And because of that system, we are yet to legitimize the People's Progressive Party. So right now, we know they're installed and illegal, and we know that they are a cabal of people focusing on filling their pockets because people are becoming sensible as days go by. It is programs like yours, Rickford Burke, programs like Sherrod Duncan's programs like Mark Benchcup and David Hines and all the other activist names that you called earlier that are being targeted. It is programs like theirs that are continuing to educate our people. And it is programs like these that our people are listening to. So as much as the People's Progressive Party attempt to shut us down Our voices are resonating in society. There are many, many people that are trying to get into contact with us, and as days go by, they are getting into contact with us, and they're telling us that they're just simply fed up of the PPP. And Rickford, make no mistake, these are people that include people who look like Daniel and myself. They send us messages daily. When y'all taking back the country? And the simple answer I gave, the day you decide to stand up and speak and vote, because that
Exactly.
is your power. Don't tell me that we have to do it. Stand up and speak. Be empowered enough and man enough to know that if you want a better Guyana, it starts with you. We are doing our part. Amanza is doing our part. I am doing my part. Daniel is doing his part. But if we all don't put our hands on deck and we all don't stand up and speak out, and when that time comes to vote and we encourage people to come out and vote against this regime for its callous behavior, its undemocratic practice, entire modus operandi where it's trying to segregate, differentiate, and part us away from each other, then we will have nowhere to go if we don't see the need to stand up. The PPP for the 23 years that we spoke of earlier tried their best to indoctrinate people to believe that the PNC is this big bad cabal, that the PNC gonna broke down and kick up and all kind of things they make up about the PNC. 5 years this country saw the PNC in the APNU ASC. 5 years they had a stable life. 5 years you had a respectable police force. 5 years you had increase in your salaries as public servants. 5 years you saw a better life every year going forward. You saw income tax threshold going up and income tax being reduced. You saw an improvement in society. You saw a stable state. You saw a state where we can live in harmony. You saw love, togetherness, and cohesion. Today, do you see that? That is what you must ask yourselves. Do you see a stable Guyana? Do you see what they talk about, this one Guyana? You ask yourself that, the viewers I'm speaking to. You ask yourself that, and the day you decide to come out, stand up and be vocal and throw your hat in the race, hold with us as we push forward to change this regime, then I guarantee you, Guyana will become a better place and a safe haven for our children and our grandchildren. Thank you, Rickford.
Amen. Amanza?
Well done. Throw your hat in the ring, Ganesh.
Well, I don't even know how to follow that. I don't even know how to follow that. You know, as a little girl growing up on the quarantine, I did not understand why, until I got older, in primary school, they emphasized us learning our national songs. There's a particular one that says, from Pacaraim's peaks of Par to Quarantine's lush sands, our children pledge each fateful hour to guard Guyana's lands, to
Mhm.
foil the shock of rude invaders who'd violate her earth, to cherish and defend forever the state that gave them birth. We'll forge a nation's mighty soul, construct a nation's frame. Freedom, our everlasting goal, courage and truth, our aim. Unyielding in our quest for peace, like ancient heroes brave. And it goes on. And it occurs to me, Rickford, that when Forbes Burnham and Chedi Jagan fought for our independence, it was with that vision in mind that we could self-determine that this Guyana experiment was ours, and we would forge this nation's mighty soul and construct its frame. And I dare say that we might be dropping the ball on that. And we might be ceding the power that we have as an independent people, as a people who are free. We may be laying that power down at the feet of expediency and comfort. Courage and truth have to be our aim. We got to be brave and we got to speak the truth, because that is what will build this nation. That is what will construct this nation's mighty soul. And so I want to appeal to us to hearken back to those days that we sang with pride those songs. With humbled hearts and heads bowed down in thanks for each new day of toil, we kneel before thy altar, Lord, the children of Guyana's soil. Those things mean something. They instilled in us an identity and a national pride
Indeed.
that we have to recapture. And when we recapture that pride of place, that pride of country, the day of reckoning will arise, because we will realize that Guyana is ours to build, is we own, and we have to cherish and we have to defend her. And so I want to say to our people, take heart, take courage. The longest night has a dawn, and we the people must be the dawn.
Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. Wow, what a discussion. I could see from the comments that it was instructive, incisive. Oh, man. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Everybody enjoyed it. Thank you guys very much for your insight. Thanks for the awareness that you've helped create. To our audience, thank you for listening. You guys are now educated. You have knowledge. Use it. Use it to empower yourself and empower others. I know they always late. It's 12 o'clock. After 12 in Guyana. Thank you guys a lot for staying up so late.
Something I don't often do, Rickford. I don't often do.
Thanks for having us on,
You can blame Daniel. Blame Daniel.
Thank you so much, my brother. I love you. Y'all stay safe. And, God bless us all.
Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you,
and you guys stay safe as well. You and your family, stay safe. Have a good night.
Good night,
listeners.
viewers and listeners. Have a good one, everyone.